안녕하세요.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening.
국제과학관심포지엄의
I am the moderator of the best practice presentation of the 11th ISSM. I am Lee Jong-min from the University of Science and Technology. This symposium is being held under the theme of Science Capital and Science Museum. Yesterday, we listened to overseas academic presentations and invitation lectures. Today, we have invited two presenters, and to have more active communication with all of you, we're using virtual reality metaverse platform. Now, let me move into the virtual reality of metaverse. Yes, now I am in the virtual reality. I see a dinosaur there. It's so amazing. I can also see the audience who are here with us in the metaverse. For your information, even if you don't participate in the metaverse virtual reality, you can still watch this program. This year, we're having this conference as a hybrid event to prevent the spread of COVID-19. All programs are available through the official website of ISSM, the YouTube channel of National Science Museum, Naver TV, Facebook, Engage, and Tengiji application, along with simultaneous translation. I welcome all of you to the virtual space. I'd like to tell you several things that you should be careful of during the presentation and conference in the virtual space. You may be forcibly seated or your microphone could be turned on and off by the host. And during the official program, please refrain from leaving your seat or using microphone. After the presentations are over, we will have Q&A session. Participants who are not in Metaverse may ask questions through the official website Q&A section, YouTube chat box, or KakaoTalk open chat rooms. I'd like to ask for your active participation. And after all presentations are over, we're going to have a lucky draw for the participants. Please use Tengiji application so that you can be the candidates to receive the free giveaways. We're going to give the free giveaways to 50 participants. Now, from now on, we'd like to start the best practice presentations of the 11th ISSM.
First, we are going to be introduced the National Folk Museum of Korea, introducing exhibition technique for people with visual disabilities. Exhibition design for all, case study of a year in Korea from the National Folk Museum. The presentation will be delivered by Ms. Yoo Min-ji, who is a curator and exhibition designer of the National Folk Museum. Please welcome her with a big round of applause. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I'm an exhibition designer of National Folk Museum. My name is Yoo Min-ji. First of all, I'd like to thank all of you for inviting me to this session. It is my great honor to join a number of Korean and international experts in this symposium. First, I had this question. I was wondering why the National Science Museum asked me to make a presentation, and one of my contacts told me that he read an article about the National Folk Museum's exhibition, and he decided to call me. And I realized that that topic was not my only, the topic that I'm only interested in, and that is a topic that many people are interested in. Now let me start my presentation. Today, as introduced, I'm going to talk about National Folk Museum of Korea introducing exhibition technique for people with visible disabilities. ICOM decides and chooses a topic for every year, and last year's topic was Museum for Equality, Diversity and Inclusion. Visitors to museums have different nationalities, different gender, and different age. So some of them may have some difficulties in their exhibition experience. So museums, we need to think about how museums' space, physical facilities, and contents can be shared with more diverse users and enjoyed by them, enhancing inclusion and accessibility. In other words, we have to make museum a place that can be enjoyed by anyone. Let's take a look at the picture on the slide. This is the lobby of a Metropolitan Museum located in New York. About 5 million visitors visit this museum every year, and there are many famous world-renowned museums, including Louvre, which attracts many visitors from countries around the world. This means that they are attracting visitors with different nationalities and who are at different age and who are using different languages. So museums should be a place that can be accessed by all walks of life. But this is not the case for every and all museums around the world. It is true that typically a museum is a place that is mostly accessible by ordinary people. That is why we came up with this concept of universal design. Universal design is the concept of designing products, facilities, and the built environment and services to be usable to the greatest extent possible by everyone, including the disabled, the elderly, children, pregnant women, and foreigners. So it is a design concept that pursues inclusion and embracing more diverse people. So this is a consideration we need to have when we design a design. Let's go back to this picture again. As you can see here, there are people with different nationalities and people who are at different age. And you can also find an elderly who is in a wheelchair. And you can also see the elderly people with mobility challenges. And there is also a family who is carrying a baby cart. And here, people with visual disabilities and people with visual impairment, they are not spotted easily. Exhibition is maybe all about what you can see. That is why the visual disabled have more difficulties in their exhibition experiences. Many museums are working hard to address these issues, but still they have a long way to go. Considering this situation, the National Folk Museum decided to adopt a universal design concept, and we decided to have an exhibition for people with visual disabilities. Let me first introduce you my museum. We have 3 exhibitions. One is a day in Korea, the other is a year in Korea, and the last one is life in Korea. In recent years, we are refurbishing aged facilities of the museum, and earlier this year, in March 2021, we renovated the exhibition space for a year in Korea. And a year in Korea exhibition displays Koreans' life and production folk life and lifestyle. And it also shows the lifestyle of Korean ancestors according to times and seasons, including spring, summer, fall, and winter. As an exhibition designer and curator, my goal is to make the space more convenient and more comfortable for everyone. And this exhibition is not a special exhibition. So it is not trendy in a way. So our primary goal was to attract as many visitors as possible and give them the best possible experience. So in this exhibition, we decided to show videos and different types of media so that the visitors can immerse themselves in their experiences in the space. The overarching theme of this exhibition is Seasons and Times in January, and we wanted to show the 4 seasons of Korea. And we also installed a Korean village in the space. It has the detached house and main house. And we also attached a video that can make you immerse yourself there. So let's take a look at the exhibition. Let's begin with the entrance. Basically, within the exhibition space, we designed it in a way that there is no difficult accessibility because some visitors come here with their families, so they bring their little children. And some of them come here in a wheelchair. So we designed the space in a way it is a wheelchair accessible. So we gave enough space. And we also make sure the floor is flat. There is no gap within one floor. And let's take a look at the furniture and how it was designed. As you can see here, our biggest goal was to make it more comfortable to everyone. We considered the children visitors and especially those in wheelchair. On average adult, their eye level is about 1.7 meters. But for children and those in wheelchair, it should be lower to 1.3 meter. So we installed panels and artifacts in display cases at the same level. And we also displayed some touch-type display case, and the height was lowered to 750 millimeters. And we also considered the elderly and pregnant women who will visit this museum. So we arranged some benches so that they can sit there to take a break during their exhibition experience. And we also installed some measures including braille maps and large prints and color lumbering and large labels for people with visual disabilities that haven't been considered before in other museums. First, let me talk about braille maps and tactile map. And there are these panels. They contain introduction of the exhibition that gives more information about the exhibition. Like other museums, we provide the native language, which is Korean, and other universal language, which is English. National Folk Museum attracts a lot of foreign visitors. That is why we are providing multiple language services, including English, Japanese, and Chinese. So there are 7 different language panels here, but we hadn't produced Braille language panels for the visually challenged people. But in this exhibition, for a day in life, we created a Braille panel for the people with visual disability, and right next to the panel, we placed a tactile map and it shows the layout of the exhibition. So it's literally a tactile map. Space is indispensable to exhibition experience. If a visitor knows where he is and where he is heading to, it'll help enhance his exhibition experience. And in this exhibition, we are trying to show 4 different seasons of Korea. So it was very important for the people with visual disabilities to follow the chronological flow of the exhibition. We used to depend on audio guidance. The people with visual disabilities used to depend on audio guidance, but now they are helped by tactile map so that they can immerse themselves in the exhibition. And it can also help ordinary people. Ordinary people can also be helped by tactile map. But our intention, we wanted to make sure our intention is achieved. So we wanted to help people with visual disabilities have more enhanced exhibition experiences. So we refer to Braille materials from the relevant local authorities. And this is a panel for everyone, like people with mobility challenges and children and the elderly. That is why we make sure some of the height of the spaces are flat. And there is also weak-sighted visitors. We also consider them in this exhibition. And there is this panel at the entrance along with Braille maps, and we also provided large prints with large typefaces, as you can see on the screen. And the title was in 40 typeface, 40 point in its typeface, and we provided large printouts. And there was a separate material from large labels, and these materials help the weak-sighted persons and the elderly visitors. And some of these brochures were stolen by people. That is why we have to repeat the production and prints of these brochures. This is a kind of a proof that this exhibition was well received by these challenged people. And this is an exhibition technique that drew the biggest attention from visitors. As you can see, the Korean artifacts, and we made a copy of them, and you can feel them. And this is a tactile artifacts. So the people with visual disabilities can touch them and have the exhibition experience. We also took great care of the materials of the exhibits. We used wood, metals into making these exhibits. And we also carved this exhibit by hand. And right next to the artifact and the exhibit, there is a Braille explanation or panel. The tactile exhibits are designed for the visually impaired, but it was well received by ordinary visitors, especially by children. Especially for children, this will be a good educational material. For equal exhibition experience, I thought people with visual disabilities and ordinary people should have the experience on the equal footing. So I made sure the artifacts and exhibits for people with visual disabilities are arranged at the same linear flow of artifacts for ordinary visitors. And the explanation panels were right below. Explanation panels for ordinary people were right above the explanatory panels for people with visual disabilities. Labels used to be located or placed right in front of the artifacts, but it crowds the space. So when we have to consider the context of the exhibit exhibition, we have to change the layout. So we came up with the idea of using colors and numbers. And so we numbered the artifacts, and we also used a color code for that, so that the weak-sighted people and people with visual disabilities find it easy to match an artifact with an explanatory panel, because there are numbers and there are colors. And this technique was also well received by visitors. We only used exhibits and labels only before, but now we added braille maps and braille panels and tactile techniques. Lastly, this is not an exhibition that depends on visual elements. We are providing different types of sensory experiences. That makes this exhibition more interesting. And National Folk Museum is a place that provides exhibitions that show Koreans' unique lifestyle. So it is very important to make sure we show Koreans' unique lifestyle. So to enhance understanding of visitors, so in this exhibition of a year in Korea, we used videos and sound effects. In the space where we displayed boats, we added sound effects of a wave, and we also played a video so that we can make the visitors feel as if they are right in the middle of the sea. And in the space for prologue, you can also see a video which shows the 4 seasons. In spring, you can hear the birds chirping. In fall, you can see the noise from walkers on the field. So we provided these auditory experiences for according to the change of seasons. So videos and sound effects that make you feel as if you are really there provide people with visual disabilities with auditory information and the ordinary people with immersive exhibition experience. As I've just showed you, the National Science Museum used braille panel and braille map and tactile map and labeling, coloring and numbering and large prints to enhance experience of people with visual disabilities. But they are not enough. But since the opening of this exhibition, many people showed their interest in this exhibition. And one of the happiest moments for me was that one of the associations of people with visual disabilities visited the exhibition. I was kind of nervous, but they were fortunately positive of the exhibition, and they were more than happy to say that they liked this exhibition. And overseas museums have noticed and realized the importance of equal exhibition experience for everyone early on. And Louvre Museum is one case, and the Abu Dhabi Museum, which was recently built, placed tactile tables in every corner of their museum to attract more visitors with disabilities. Another case is at London Museum. MoMA and MAT are other examples. They use sensory maps which separate dark space, bright space, and crowded space, and noisy space, and quiet space. And this will help visitors with autism spectrum and other challenges. So we can learn a lesson from these other museums in other countries. And the same trend can be seen in Korea. Since the opening of the exhibition of a year in Korea, we are contacted by many museums in Korea. They wanted to share our experience, and National Museum of Korea opened this exhibition. They placed a tactile table. Next month, the National Folk Museum will also open a new exhibition of life in Korea, and we will also place tactile measures in the exhibition. People at different ages and with different gender and different nationalities and background visit museums. So museums should be designed in a way that they embrace and include different types of audience. So like the case of National Folk Museum's Day in Korea, research on exhibition design considering universal design can make museum open to more people. Due to COVID-19, it is very difficult for people to visit museums in person, but things are changing now with Corona, with the new policy of with Corona. Things will change further, and changes will begin with a small step, like the exhibition of a day in Korea of the National Folk Museum. It is necessary for museums to continue to work on exhibition techniques so that they can be open to more diverse audiences and visitors will not feel excluded or isolated. Lastly, I'd like to share my favorite quote. And good design should be like a good maid. So for universal design and designs for the weak in our society should work as a maid for everyone. So design for everyone. Everyone should work together to make a museum open to all. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much, Ms. Yumin-ji. Please give her another big round of applause.
유민지 학예연구소님께서는 국립민속박물관의 상설 전시 한국인의 1년 사례를 통해서
So she introduced us the exhibition of National Folk Museum's A Day in Korea, and in her presentation, she said this was a case that a museum was open to more diverse people so that it can embrace more audiences. Now we will have a Q&A. If you are not in Metabus, you can leave your question in the official website of ISSM 2021 or the YouTube channel of National Science Museum and Kakao Talk's open chat room and Naver TV. Now, let me open up the floor in Metabus for questions. I see someone raise your hand. Youngjin Lee. Good morning. I'm Youngjin Lee. Thank you so much for your presentation. My question is, in order to accessibility of more diverse audiences, why did you choose people with visual disabilities? Thank you very much for your question. As I said in my presentation, a museum and an art museum is a place where you can see exhibitions. So visibility is very important element here. And artifacts or exhibits can play an important role in science museum, but in ordinary museum, what you see is most important. So we ask ourselves this question in designing this exhibition. For special exhibition, we have only a small amount of budget. So it is very difficult to place and arrange more measures or displays for people with disabilities. For permanent exhibition, we can have more budget. So I personally wanted to place more measures for people with visual disabilities so that they can have almost the same exhibition experiences with other people. So she told us how she designed this exhibition for people with visual disabilities in the first place. Any other questions? Omsu? I can see Omsu raise her hand. Thank you very much for the case of National Folk Museum. My question is about the trend in Korea about universal design, and what should curators consider if they want to apply universal design in their museums? It is a very important question. Many museums, when they build an exhibition space and when they build museums in the first place, they consider universal design. And universal design is kind of about more accessibility for people with disabilities. So you provide a wider pathway, or you install a wheelchair lamp. And you can also see these measures around and in exhibition space and museums. But we have to ask ourselves whether we have enough installations within exhibition space so that people with physical challenges of other disabilities can feel welcomed. And there is a limitation. There was a limitation here, and curators and many people and the staff in museums, I think they need to think about what they can do more to help people with visual disabilities have a better experience. Let me give you an example. Smithsonian Museum that runs 19 different museums. I think you are already familiar with this museum. The foundation, Smithsonian Foundation, came up with a guideline, which contains operational procedures of museum. One of them is a guideline that explains how to install display cases and exhibition space for more people. Maybe there was not spotted in the first place because there was a well integrated in existing place or space. So my hope is that we can come up with a guideline like that of Smithsonian Group. And most important thing is to change our perception. We have to think about how to attract more visitors. I'm not saying we have to attract more visitors only in number, but we have to attract more visitors in diverse. We have to attract more diverse audiences. So she told us about cases in other countries, including the Smithsonian guideline. She said it is important to attract more visitors, but it is equally important to attract visitors who haven't been visiting us before. And I have a question too.
상설 전시에서
In exhibition, it must have been very difficult to adopt a universal design.
다른 전시나 아니면
And
박물관에 전해주는 것도 쉽지 않은
it was not easy to share the universal design concept with other exhibition designers, even within the National Folk Museum. So if another museum wants to copy or share the universal design you had, what advice would you like to share, or what help can you give? I'm not an expert in universal design. I just tried a universal design earlier than the others, so I'm not sure how much I can help the other museums. But I think at least I can share my journey of adopting or using universal design with you, so that you can apply universal design to your museums in a shorter time than it took for me. And I made some mistakes in the journey, and I had support and I had help from other people in designing the exhibition space by using universal design. So I'm going to share my experiences with you if you ask. So thanks to this presentation, I can share my experiences and the lessons I learned with the audiences. So I'd like to thank National Science Museum for giving me this opportunity. So if you want to share my experiences, just contact me. So we will be more than happy to share your know-hows and your experiences. If you have a question, please ask the question within the Metabus, and you can also leave your question in the official website of ISSM 2021 and other channels. While you are thinking about your question, let me ask the presenter another question. When it comes to universal design and when it comes to designing an exhibition space, it is important for you to apply universal design. You have long thought about that. So in the future, what are you planning to do? What are you planning to try with universal design? What I did this time in this exhibition was a very small thing, so I will expand from there. As the first person who asked the question asked why I chose the people with visual disabilities for the theme of this exhibition. A museum may have to come up with a program that provides the sign languages for the deaf. And so as a designer, exhibition designer, I'm thinking about what other help or assistance I can provide in an exhibition for people with disabilities. And any other questions? Tae-woo, he raised his hand, so I will give you an opportunity to ask a question. My name is Tae-woo Kim. A museum is a place where children are not allowed to touch the exhibits. But in your exhibition, children were able to, I guess, touch the exhibits because you provided tactile exhibits. And another question is about VR. In exhibition space, we can only see one side of exhibits, but if we use VR, we can see all angles of the exhibits. So are you planning to provide any VR experiences in your exhibition? That is a very good question. As you just said, children visitors, they love the tactile exhibits. In ordinary museums, the signage or the panels say, do not touch the exhibits. But tactile exhibits attract children because they can touch them. Tactile exhibits were designed for people with visual disabilities, but not only children but adults, they have this instinct to touch exhibits. That is why our exhibition was well received by visitors. And as you just brought up the VR, to answer your question, many exhibitions are using AR and VR technologies. As you mentioned, displaying artifacts and exhibits tend to show what we want to show the most, but we are having more advanced technologies and we are willing to take advantage of the new technologies for our exhibitions, not only for our permanent exhibition, but for special exhibitions. Not only folk museums but other museums are using technologies, new technologies, but as the restrictions on COVID-19 quarantine are lifted, I think we'll have more visitors in presence in our exhibitions, and we will add more technologies. And exhibitions for people with visual disabilities have also helped children and ordinary visitors have a more or better exhibition experience. Now there is another question. What is the feedback from blind people, the visitors with visual disabilities? This was the most important thing. As I said in my presentation, as soon as we opened the exhibition, we had visitors from the Association of the Blind in Korea. So their stories were very impressive, and their feedback, I was kind of nervous that what kind of feedback they will give us. I was kind of felt I was judged by them. But my exhibition, I was not sure whether this exhibition with universal design will actually help people with visual disabilities. So I was nervous, but this lack of confidence will deter other museums from trying this universal design in the first place. And I felt I was put on a test bed. But I felt rewarded after the exhibition because of the positive feedback from the visitors. And they also shared their input with us so that we can make our exhibition better next time. So Ms. Yumin Ji said the visit from the Association of the Blind in Korea was the most nervous experience for her, but she could have been sad if the association didn't visit the exhibition, and she also said she felt like she was put on a test when they visited her exhibition. Another question is about the overall educational programs of National Folk Museum. And there must be educational programs for different ages. So could you share them with us? This is the question. And National Folk Museum has good quality educational programs. We have a specific educational program for different types of people, like a program for children, a program for the elderly, and programs for different ages. One of the programs is for people with disabilities. I'm not in charge of these educational programs, so I cannot give you the right answer. But let me briefly share with you our educational programs. We invite a group of about 10 people with disabilities to our museum to provide them with an educational program for sensory experience. But it became very difficult to invite them now because of the current situation, so we recorded the educational program in a sign language, and we let them download the program, and we also upload an audio files online, so people with disabilities can download the file and have almost the same experience of exhibition about artifacts. So overall, as we saw in other countries' cases, we will have more specific educational programs for disabilities, for the disabled, like with the autistic spectrum. So she said, National Folk Museum has programs for people with disability, not only for people with visual disabilities. Due to COVID-19 pandemic, many people may feel lonelier than before, but it is a good time for us to be comforted by arts and exhibitions. Disabilities that we can see are not the only disabilities. Psychological disabilities are also disabilities. We can see them in Korean cases and other countries' cases. We had many questions for this presentation, and it was a very active discussion, and it was a very active Q&A. Lastly, Ms. Yoo Min-ji, while you're preparing for this presentation and while you were invited to this symposium, you may have thought that you will be joining many people working in museums. So would you like to give your last remark or comment? As you just said, I was glad the National Science Museum asked me to make my presentation in this symposium. I was kind of startled at first, but I felt I should be well prepared for this presentation. Regardless of whether you're working in a museum or working in art museum or science museum, we have a common interest and common goal. I had this small attempt and trial, but I wanted to help you with my experiences. I thought I would be glad if I can help you address your concerns that could be the same as my concern. So once again, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity, and I will be happy to join you if I be given another opportunity in the future. It was Ms. Yoo Min-ji, curator and exhibition designer of National Folk Museum. Please give her another big round of applause.
이상으로
This ends the session for a presentation of best practices of ISSM 2021. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, more people are meeting online. I think you may find the virtual space unfamiliar, but it was a good experience for me as well as for you. So I'd like to meet you in the future through various media. Thank you so much for being with us until the end. let me congratulate them in advance. This ends the session for presentation on best practices of ISSM 2021. I'm Lee Jong-min at University of Science and Technology. Thank you so much.